This is the S&P 500 Spider ETF SPY 1-month overview reading for the month of March 2025. It's currently February 19th, 2025, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. SPY at the time of this reading is $612.93. That's USD. And the shuffle video for the March reading was created on January 23rd, 2025 at 7:47 p.m. Eastern Time. In this video, we're going to cover the overall chart behavior and trend direction for the month of March. We're going to give you chart behavior to look for that'll appear near the month's highest high and the month's lowest low. We're going to then give you a review of January and February to see how we did on those predictions, give you an idea of our accuracy. Then we'll come back and we'll do the day-by-day chart behavior sequence of chart events. And after that, we'll give you one of the best trades, or we'll give you the best trades that we see for the month. So stay tuned for that at the end. It's important to understand, if you're new, guys, remember the main thing about this prediction is we're predicting the sequence of chart events as outlined as follows, as we're going to give you. But it's important to understand that not each card's energy going left to right across the screen will necessarily line up perfectly with 1 day of time. And because of that, there will be some readings where you have to account for that with plus or minus a day or two of wiggle room here or there. So it's always most important to pay attention to the sequence of chart events. And then the timing is like a guide we're usually on point, but not all the time. So pay attention to the chart events. Really, if you're planning on trading this stuff on your own, you're crazy. You should not. You should just look at this as a video for entertainment purposes that prove to you that extrasensory perception works and can be used practically in the real world. But if you're actually thinking about trading, I highly recommend that you get on our Discord. You're going to want to subscribe to one of our subscriptions on the website Tarot for Traders, and that'll give you access to our Discord trade alerts as well as chart drawings. I'll show you how to get all that stuff at the end of the video. So the overall theme of behavior, the Ace of Discs is a very difficult card right off the bat to get overall trend direction. What you can rely on is that there's going to be an important support level on a 1-year chart scale highlighted in the month of March, and a lot of price change into and or out of that support level. So there's a lot of price change when you see the Ace of Discs. It's crossed with an important resistance that we failed to break through many times before. It doesn't mean that we don't necessarily break through it this time. Usually what will happen is we won't. We'll come up against it, we'll fail to break through it multiple times, and then we'll decline from it. But that's not always the case. Really, the cruelty card is just telling us about this resistance level that should be highlighted that we've seen several times before. And very, very rarely is it that we're going to see it many times and fail to break through. Sometimes that happens as well. Behavior on the high side, we should see a market-wide decline. Well, obviously it's SPY, but this should be a really notable decline out of the month's high. It'll really stand out on a 1-year chart scale. And then the behavior around the lowest low for the month, we have an unexpected move to the upside out of the low. Usually when you see the star card in the low significator position, there's a decline into a low, and it looks like we're going to go further, but instead there's this unexpected move and notable move to the upside. We'll look at that in more detail as we progress into the reading. All right, so let's take a look at January and see how we did. Overall, I think it was a pretty solid month. We had a highest high thus far and a lowest low thus far here on the 2nd, and it looks like the lowest low thus far really was here on the 4th. And then we had another peak around the 6th, 7th, and you can see we had a peak here on the 6th, 7th. And then it looks like I missed the low by quite a few days. I have it here for the 17th. Ended up being the 13th, which really I should have been able to see that. It's like a revisiting of a support level that we saw recently before. Sometimes we don't get it every time, but anybody with the Discord trade alerts would have been fine. And you can see, so we were off a little bit on the low by a few days, but we did nail the highest highs. We have a highest high here on the 23rd, right? And then we have a highest high again around the 30th, 31st, and it looks like we did come into a highest high. We didn't stay there, but we did pop all the way up to the highest high again there. So pretty much nailed the highest highs and the highest highs thus far along the way. We were about 5 days off or 4 days off on the low, which is pretty bad. I'm usually not that far off. But I mean, it's bound to happen at some point. So you always want to make sure that you trade responsibly if you do plan to trade this information. All right, and then for February, looks like February we pretty much have nailed it so far. So we had a highest high here on the last day of the month of January, and you can see how that took place. Right, then we have a lowest low for the month somewhere between the 4th and the 6th, and it looks like it ended up being on the 3rd. Oh, we have the cusp of the 3rd, 4th, so we were off by a day there. And then we get into a prominent peak on the 7th. Looks like 6th, 7th. Looks like we had that prominent peak. There's another prominent possibility of a lowest low on the 10th. That didn't come to fruition. We ended up having another peak there around the 7th and the 10th. But then we go higher. We go higher still. We have on the 12th a possible trough, and then we end up in highest highs. So as far as this is concerned, the lowest lows we did pretty solid here. We had a highest high here at the end of the month, and we have highest highs ahead of us. My sense is that we likely are going to fulfill those highest highs because we're on track to do so. And then likely there's some sort of drop here around the cusp of February, March. Not our best stuff, but definitely not our worst either. And again, anybody with the SPY trade alerts and live trading view charts should have been fine, because that's really the best way to get this information in real time. These videos really like an expectation of things to happen, but they don't always go according to plan again. All right, so we're going to get into this sequence of chart events. On the 3rd, we have a trough early in the day, and there's 3 pokes through the same trend line, followed by a sharp drop off of that 3rd poke, taking us into what's most likely a lowest low thus far on the 4th. There's a failed attempt to break through resistance, followed by a decline through key support on the 4th. That failed attempt to break through resistance, what's important about it is that based on technicals, we're most likely going to expect that we'll break through the resistance, but instead we decline. It's very disappointing, and there's a lowest low thus far there on the 4th. On the 5th, a lot of volatility. We should see a prominent peak and a prominent trough forming on the 5th, with the peak towards the end of the day in the midst of that volatility. On the 6th, we've got an important technical price level highlighted on a 1-year chart scale. Usually it's resistance, but that's not always the case with the science card. And what we can rely on is to see an important prominent trough again. It may be that we're seeing going from a trough to a peak to a trough back on the 6th. Sideways fluctuating decline on the 7th, preceding a notable rally. And that rally probably takes place. That rally probably takes place at the end of the day. So we have like this sideways fluctuating decline probably from this crest here on the 5th, or peak on the 5th, sideways fluctuating decline, an important technical price level highlighted, and then this turns into a rally on the 7th towards the end of the day. I wouldn't be fooled by that. It looks like we go lower in the following week. On the 10th, there's an important resistance level. Sometimes the Princess of Swords is a high. It's not always a high. Sometimes it's just an important technical price level. So the alternate, what I expect is to see a lowest low for the month somewhere around the 10th, 11th. The alternate could be a highest high instead taking place on the 10th, but I think it's unlikely. We're much more likely to see that highest high taking place further on in the month, and we'll get into that as we progress. So a lowest low for the month somewhere between the 10th and 11th, and the resistance level on the 10th should be at a prominent peak, and we should decline from that resistance into a trough, prominent trough on a 1-month scale, followed by a return back to that resistance either on the 10th or somewhere in the not too distant future. It looks like it may be at the beginning of the day on the 11th with a sharp drop. With a sharp drop at the on the cusp of the 10th, 11th. Probably taking us into, if we haven't already seen the lowest low, probably taking us into the lowest low. But there should be a decline increasing with momentum moving forward in time there on the 11th. And on the 12th, we have a period of sideways rotation and a sharp drop that stands out in that period of sideways rotation. We should most likely revisit a support level that was recently an opportunity in the midst of that drop. And there should also be a prominent peak on a 1-month scale taking place there on the 12th. Sideways fluctuating rally on the 13th, preceding a notable decline. Direction on the 14th is a little difficult. So either we see a notable decline that's at the end of the day on the 13th and or on the 14th. But the Magus card often is kind of mixed and provides a pretty significant trade opportunity. So it's likely that we see a lot of price change there. A lot of price change there. There's correlation to the ace of discs. Hard to say the direction. You'll have to follow along on the SPY Discord channel in real time. I'll have a much better understanding over the 14th based on that. But it's very, very tricky in this reading to determine where it is. I think we probably have a move to the downside early in the day or overnight, and then this big move to the upside on the 14th. On the 17th, we have a rally increasing with momentum moving forward in time, taking us into key resistance on the 18th that we failed to break through, and then we declined through key support there on the 18th into a prominent trough on a 1-month scale. On the 19th, and we have some flat chart behavior for the most part, kind of like flatten out, and most likely what happens is that we rally somewhere here around the starting probably around the cusp of the 19th, 20th. We rally into a highest high for the month towards the end of the day on the 20th, most likely. It could be anywhere between the 19th and the 21st, but my sense is it's probably at the end of the day on the 20th. And we should see an overbought crest that we then sell off from through multiple support levels into sideways rotation taking place on the 21st. Remember, we're looking for a sharp drop off of the highest high, and it looks like we do have that based on the figurines here, and this ruin is in this positioning. On the 24th, we have a prominent move higher, full retracement, taking us into a trough towards the end of the day. And out of a decline on the 25th, we have a notable move to the upside, really in the face of seemingly overwhelming headwinds, taking us back to a peak. There's a peak and a trough around the end of the day on the 25th, or the cusp of the 25th, 26th. Probably a lot of price change there. And then it's very likely that we see the same high on the 26th that we had from the 20th. Let's see. Yeah, so most likely we see the same high there. There is some possibility of it being a highest high, like higher than this, but it's not a strong possibility. Most likely we were revisiting the highest high again here. Either that or we're revisiting a peak from the 24th, one of those two. And we'll have a better idea of that in real time as well. On the 27th, a brief peak that's easily missed, followed by a decline through multiple support levels, turning into erratic behavior on the 28th, back and forth through the same price level. In the midst of that erratic behavior, we usually revisit a crest that was recently a past opportunity. Sometimes it's a trough, usually it's a crest. And then over the weekend, there's a rally early in the day on the 30th. That then either that or a big move over the weekend to the upside, but that rally then turns over. It's halted by a decline through key support taking place there on the 31st. And then the April preview card is the prudence card. What I think is really interesting about that is the prudence card is the high significator card for April. My sense is that unlikely to. It could be a highest high. There's a possibility, guys. So, but I really think it's over here. In any case, the prudence card here in April, indicating that the high for April is still ahead of us. This should be a highest high thus far for the year of 2025. And so far, this is actually looking pretty solid. The lowest low was off a little bit, it looks like. It took place it took place in January. So a little bit off there, unless we do see a really sharp decline at the end of the month here into March, which could be a possibility based on it. But we did have a highest high thus far here towards the end of January. We should see another highest high here, it looks like, on the cusp of March and April, and probably the beginning of April. So look out for that. All right, so as I'm going to give you the best trades that I see for the month. Remember, these are really just trade expectations. If you're actually going to pull the trigger on these trades, it's super important that you have access to the live Discord trade alerts and live updated trading view charts, which I'm going to show you how to get right after this. We go through these trades. All right, so here on the 10th, with this important resistance, we should see a prominent peak forming. What's a prominent peak versus a highest high? If you're new to the channel, let's explain. So on this chart right here, this would be the highest high. But this is a prominent peak. 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 Lowest low, prominent trough, prominent trough, prominent trough. Hopefully that makes sense, my friends. So we're looking for resistance at a prominent peak on the 10th that we should then decline from pretty notably, hopefully taking us into a lowest low either on the 10th, or if we don't reach a lowest low on the 10th, then we're very, very likely to see a lowest low on the 11th. But my sense is we probably have a lowest low right there around the cusp of the 10th, 11th. And at some point, we're going to return back to that resistance level. It's probably going to be there on the 12th. So what I would want to do is at the lowest low, open up a long position, and you could close that long position when we revisit the resistance level that we identify from the 10th, either here on the 12th or the 11th. It might be the 11th, actually, based on the dark purple correlation. In either case, you expect the notable reversal on the 12th. With this sideways rotation and a sharp drop in that period of sideways rotation on the 12th, you likely could open up another long position and close that long position on the 13th. So the close for the long position opener on the cusp of the 10th, 11th, and the close for the long position opened on the 12th. You could take the close them on the 13th with that sideways fluctuating rally. I would likely open up a short position here on the 13th and close the short position early in the day on the 14th. If we come close to a lowest low or there's a big drop at the beginning of the day or overnight into the 14th, I would say that's a pretty notable opportunity to open up a long position, which you might be able to close for a day trade based on it being the Magus card. But if you can't close it for a day trade, then very likely you'd close it on the 17th. What's interesting, there's no trade advisement around this high, which makes it a little bit more suspect. If it's not here, if the highest high isn't here, I'm going to go with this. No, it's got to be there. It's got to be there. In any case, so there's a pretty sharp drop there out of the highest high. If we don't, let's say this, if we don't have a highest high for the month taking place around the 20th plus or minus a day, then that would be a clear indication that we have a highest high taking place here on the 26th. If we do have a highest high, then another highest high on the 26th is a lot less likely. But what I want to do is on the 24th, we have this prominent move higher, full retracement taking us into a trough. You could open up a long position there, a partial long, add to it if we're lower on the 25th, but you would look to close those long positions on the 26th. If you can close out of it on the 25th, do that. If instead we end up in another significant opportunity to open up a long, then do that and close it on the 26th. And then if you miss those opportunities to close out of the longs, the 28th in that erratic behavior back and forth through the same price level, we most likely are going to revisit an opportunity at a crest where you would then be able to close out of it. And those are the best trades for SPY in March 2025. Let me know what you think by hitting that like button. And as always, make sure to follow that rule of karma. Stay tuned. I'm going to show you guys how to get the early access subscription. You go to our website, Tarot for Traders, and you hover over Order Now. Click on Subscriptions. Early access is our early access is our like intro subscription. It gives you access to the live Discord trade alerts, live updated trading view charts, where we actually draw in real time entry and exits. We're not right all the time, but most of the time we are. It also gets you access, the earliest access that you can get, period, to any of our public posts that come out on YouTube. And then there's other subscriptions if you're interested in crypto and crypto and other tickers. I would recommend the monthly access for swing trading, as well as more long-term trading with the total access covering all of these tickers in 2025, with more on the way. Much love and appreciation to everybody that does that and supports the channel. But most importantly, remember that rule of karma. You go to our resources tab, and then 5% of all profits should be donated forward to one of these charities here. You just click on a link and donate, and 5% of all profits should be donated forward. Should be donated back to the channel through one of these links. If you're international, you can use Wise or you can use crypto. It leaves you at 90%, which is way more than a stockbroker would ever leave you with. Make sure to spend that money out of love. As long as you follow those rules, you're an angel investor of the channel. The universe is going to send it back to you tenfold for following through. Blessings to all my angel investors. I'll see you guys on the next one.